Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another one of our live Q&A events. Today, we're going to be talking about all things finance whilst at university, particularly focusing on things like student finance and top tips how to manage your money. So I've got some great people here today just to help share some financial insight while you're at university. So, David, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello everybody, I'm David May and I look after NTU's Student Financial Advice Service. I'm an ex-student too. I spent 5 years with the law school and loved it so much, I've come back as staff.
Fab, okay, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Gaia and I'm a fourth year psychology of criminology student, and I'm here to offer some top tips from the perspective of a current NTU student.
Amazing, thank you. So my name's Katie. I work in the communications team here at NTU, and I also used to be a student, and then I've come back to work. So just like you, David, I couldn't keep away for long. And so yeah, here as well to offer any insight that I can. So to start off today's live, David has actually prepared some slides with some information on, just so we can run through the top things about student finance and get those burning questions answered. So David, if you want to take it away, and then we'll come to the Q&As after.
Thank you so much. So what we'll do then for the first 15 to 20 minutes is go through some information about fees and funding and money whilst here at NTU. My colleague Jake's in the background who's going to move the slides along for me. So we'll get started, Jake. So a warm welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and I really do hope that you get a lot out of the next 45 minutes or so. So during the slides, we'll cover tuition fees. We'll look at average living costs for your time at Nottingham, what funding you might be entitled to, and then we'll wrap it up with some top tips. And then if you have any questions, feel free to ask those as well. Okay, so tuition fees and living costs then. So for those of you starting in September, the tuition fee will be £9,250. Now, the fee you pay each academic year of study, and some of our courses are called sandwich degrees. So often in the third year, you may go out to spend a year working in industry, or you may decide to study abroad. So the fee for that particular year is £1,385 for the current year. When you come to that particular year, the fee may be higher. We don't have the fees confirmed for future years. They've been that amount for the last few years, so there has been a cap, but it is down to sort of government policy and regulations. But any changes to the fees we'll always communicate in good time. Okay, so here's a really important slide to get you started then. So these figures are taken from the National Student Aid 2021. Will give you sort of rough idea as to how much average living costs for students per month might be. So course materials £17, groceries £101, mobile phone £15, socialising £47. I think it's really important to bear in mind that sort of during that year, it's quite likely that students may have been subject to coronavirus related lockdowns. So I would imagine, and we'll certainly possibly pick up on this a bit later, that socialising will be a bit higher than that for the average student going forward now that restrictions have been lifted. Holidays and events 14, clothes 34, travel £34. Now, Nottingham's quite a small city, so if you're planning on living in the city centre and studying in the city centre, then you may not actually have many travel costs whilst you're studying. It may just be to get home at the end of each term or what have you. Takeaways 40, and health and well-being 15.
Yeah, I definitely don't think I spent £34 on traveling when I was a student. You can literally walk anywhere in the city, can't you? You hardly need to go anywhere. So yeah.
Absolutely. We do have a number of campuses, and I suppose one thing to bear in mind is that you may choose to study at one campus and live at another. So one really big important top tip would be to consider getting a bus pass. So look at these for potential upfront costs. So a bus pass for the academic year for the current year students is £259, and that will give you unlimited travel across the Nottingham City Transport Network. And one of the buses, number 4, I believe it's called, takes you from the City campus directly onto the Clifton campus. So You know, if you're going to be travelling between those two campuses, a bus pass would certainly be well worth considering. Contents insurance, so roughly around £70, and a lot of contents insurance for students will also cover things like laptops whilst you're out and about, so it's really worth thinking about that. Cycle hire directly from ourselves, that's £109, but you do get £60 of that back when you return the bike. Kitchen items, £30. You can spend as much as you want on those. A lot of my students often go to IKEA, so we've got one of those on the outskirts of Nottingham and can pick up kitchen items really, really cheaply. Another top tip on that is that, you know, you may get to know the people that you might share with before you turn up, and you can discuss what each of you might bring to save some of the costs. Gym membership, £110 if you go for any time, or £89 off peak. And then also do consider bringing bedding, so approximately £30 for that. Again, you may vary depending on your own set of circumstances.
Yep.
Okay, so funding your studies. So most students will have various sources of income that you might have to help you supplement your living costs. So the maintenance loan, that's the loan from student finance. That helps to support your living costs. Then you may also have financial support from a parent or somebody that cares for you. You may have some savings that you're going to bring to university, or you may choose to work part-time, either during the summer or over the vacation periods, or whilst you study. So we do have good links with local employers via our employability team, and we often advertise part-time work for students to consider when they're up here in Nottingham. Some students might be entitled to the NTU bursary, and some students may also be entitled to certain welfare state benefits whilst they study.
Brill.
Okay, so from student finance then, the core package of support that you may be entitled to would be a tuition fee loan. So that will be paid directly to the university, and that will cover the full cost of the course. So £9,250 per academic year. And then in addition to that, you may also be entitled to a maintenance loan. So that is paid to the student directly. It's usually paid in 3 equal instalments at the start of each term. And the amount that you would receive for the maintenance loan, part of that is means tested, and we'll look at a bit more in detail in a couple of slides' time. Now, furthermore, depending on your personal circumstances, you may also be entitled to certain grants. So some of those grants could be in the form of money. So, for example, if you have a dependent child or a dependent adult living with you, or some of those grants might be to pay support whilst on the course. It could be specialist equipment or a non-medical helper, and that's called the Disabled Students Allowance. Okay, next slide. Okay, so directly from university here at NTU, we also provide a number of bursaries. So the NTU bursary, that's £750 per year. That's for the current year. We're just finalising the arrangements for next year. So students qualify for the bursary if they can receive a tuition fee loan and a maintenance loan from student finance, and they have a household income of £25,000 or less. We get the household income information directly from the student loans company. So as long as you meet the eligibility criteria, which you can find on our website, then we automatically assign the bursary to you. So there's no separate application process. If you're estranged from parents, or if you're a care leaver or a 4-year resident, then you may also qualify for £1,000 per year from those specialist bursaries. You can only get one of each of those, but you can combine one of those with the NTU bursary. So we have more information about all of our bursary offer on the NTU website. As soon as we finalise the arrangements for 22-23, they will be published.
Brill.
Okay. Okay, so this first chart here, this gives you an indication as to how much maintenance loan you might be entitled to. So part of the maintenance loan is subject to a household income assessment. So that's normally parental income. So part of it isn't. So 4524 is guaranteed to every student that receives student finance. And I must say that these are the figures for Student Finance England. Then as household income decreases, the amount of maintenance loan increases to the maximum of 9,706 for those that have a household income of £25,000 or less. In addition to that, the students that have a household income of £25,000 or less can also receive our bursary. So if you look at the far column, depending on where you might be on household income, there may be a deficit, and that is an amount of money that you may need to consider making up through work or through other sources to ensure that you have enough to meet your essential living costs if you're living away from home. So that's halls or rented accommodation, plus all of your living costs, course costs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's really good to look at it like that.
Absolutely. And this one here, this is for those that decide to live at home in the parental home. And, you know, certain students, we do have a number of those students that do that. You know, they may live locally and they still entitled to a maintenance loan. It is a bit less. However, they're still, you know, you're still going to get some money. You don't need to borrow the full amount of maintenance loan. If you're living with parents, you know, they may or may not charge you to live there whilst you study, but if they do, you may pay a board. But, you know, if you don't need to borrow the full amount of the maintenance loan from the student loans company, there's no obligation to do that. And, you know, the deficit would really depend on how much you're charged by parents or those that look after you. On the student finance website, there is a calculator and you can plug in your details and it will give you a rough estimation as to how much maintenance loan you'll receive. And every year, the amount of maintenance loan will increase slightly with inflation. Okay, next slide. Okay. So here is a timeline, and it's certainly worth starting to think about the things that you might need to do as far as your finances are concerned with regards to getting ready to join us at NTU. So March next month, applications will open for student finance. It's an online application. You can find all of the information plus the application itself on the .co.uk website. There is a separate part of that application that parents go into, and that's where you would put in your financials or your national insurance number, and that is used for the household income assessment for the maintenance loan. On the 30th of March, applications for NTU accommodation open. It is really, there's a lot of demand. Places will go very, very quickly. So you do need to consider that. And I must also say on that point that we have our own accommodation, but there's also many other private providers of accommodation in halls or rented accommodation in Nottingham. So it's really good to do some research, see what's out there and see that what's going to work for you and your budget. And if you're not really into the habit of completing a budget, doing a financial statement, it's worth getting into doing that sooner rather than later, so you can start considering how to manage your finances effectively when you join us. Now, it's really, really important to apply for your finance as early as you can, because the process itself, it can take a fair old while. So over the summer, that period of time does extend because of the demand on the application system and the time that the assessors have. You know, there's a lot more applications in the system. So if you apply early, then it normally takes about 4 to 5 weeks. If you apply over the summer, it can take a couple of months. Money only gets released once you're on the course. So if you change your mind at a later stage about coming to university, money won't be paid out. We have to do something here at the university which releases the funding. So do apply by the 20th of May. That's the soft deadline to guarantee that you'll get your funding in time for the start of the academic year. You can apply after that date, but you may have your funding delayed. So you may turn up to Welcome Week without your student finance. So you may need to make alternative arrangements, but apply early. If you're not sure where you're going to go to university, just put your first best guess down, because it's really easy to change the institution of choice on the application. A bit that takes the time is assessing you and your parents' income. That's the bit that will take a few weeks. And also over the summer, do consider what you might need to bring to university. You know, what equipment might you need, what cooking stuff might you need, who you're going to live with, where you're going to live. You know, do get all of your ducks in a row, as it were. And then on the 16th of September, that's our enrolment weekend. That's when you'll be joining us. And that is really when your journey starts. So make sure that you do have some money to enjoy all of the Welcome Week activities. There are many of those to enjoy. Okay, so here's a really simple 4 easy step guide. So think about your income. So your maintenance loan, that gets paid generally at the start of each term. How many weeks will it last? So a term is typically somewhere between 10 to 12 weeks. Our accommodation costs are paid in about thirds as well, normally at the start of each term. So do consider, once your accommodation costs have been paid, is there any money left? How much have you got left? Think about whatever regular costs that you might have. So you could possibly have a mobile phone contract. You might have Netflix. You might have some other subscriptions. How much are you going to spend on food, books, course costs going out, that sort of thing. So there are lots of great budgets, apps. We've got some good spreadsheets on our website that you could possibly take a look at. It's really, really worth thinking about maybe budgeting on a weekly basis. That's how most students do it. So, think about what works for you. And if you need a hand getting everything sorted, you can always contact my team. And there's information about how you do that available online, or our email address is scrolling around as far as I'm aware. So you do get in contact with us if you've got any questions. Yeah, is that working?
I think they've got the ticket across the bottom. I think if we...
Oh, brilliant. Excellent.
Yeah.
There it is. And we can help you and prospective students with budgeting and money management. So, if you do have any questions and you want to have a one-to-one appointment over Microsoft Teams, we're more than happy to see you.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
Okay, so we'll end with a couple of top tips. So here's the first one. So budget. I can't say this anymore. There are loads of apps these days, or some people prefer to use Excel or even a paper diary to keep track of your spending. If you can get your budget together before coming to university, that will really give you an idea as to how much you'll have to spend. Most of our students tend to do it on a weekly basis. That seems to work for those guys, but others do it on a monthly basis. And there's plenty of tools out there online, and do get into that habit if you've not really had a stab at a budget in the past. On our websites, on the money management pages, there are loads of great resources for you to use. Or if you'd fancy contacting us to have a budgeting appointment, you're more than welcome to.
Brilliant.
So prepare for welcome week at the start of term. So normally your maintenance loan, if you've got everything sorted, that will arrive at some point during that first week. It may not arrive at the start of the week. So it's always worth having some money for the first couple of weeks, so you can buy the essentials and start to engage with our activities. So always bring some money if you can.
Yeah.
And learn to cook. So cooking your own food is substantially cheaper than eating out or ordering takeaways. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that, of course, but consider your finances. If you have to eat out all the time or get takeaways all the time, that's really going to eat into your money. So learning to cook, if you can't cook already, is certainly worth having a look. And also, it's a very sociable thing to do. So, you can have pizza parties or whatever it might be, and, you get a lot of enjoyment out of cooking.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was such a bad cook. I mean, I'm still not the best cook, to be honest, but at university, I had no idea what I was doing. And I learned, I think it was like 4 or 5 recipes, like your standard, like spaghetti, a bit of spaghetti bolognese, so I shouldn't really call it spaghetti, so know what I'm talking about. Spaghetti bolognese, like lasagna, like things that can really fill you up, but you can do with like cheaper ingredients. And then you can make a big portion of it and freeze it. And it's just so much easier for you to be able to have your, get all your nutrients, but also be able to just learn how to do it. It's 100%. That is such good advice. I wish someone had sat me down before I came to uni and fed me a cooking book.
Absolutely, and a lot of students will bring coffee onto campus, in a thermos. The coffee that we sell at the cafes and the food bars in all of the campuses is really good quality. But if you're buying one of those every day, that will soon add up. So think about what you might be able to bring in whilst you're doing your lectures and your seminars and that sort of thing.
100%.
Okay, and do consider alternatives to buying brand new course books. Now, you can borrow books from our library, and we have a massive amount of digital resources now. But there is also a really healthy second-hand books market. So the only sort of caveat to that is that in some areas, I studied law, and things may change quite quickly. European law, as an example, is changing massively at the moment as far as the UK is concerned. So, second-hand books are a really, really good way of saving money, but just make sure that the content is fit for purpose. And finally, I just want to introduce you all to a website which is called blackbullion.com. A lot of universities partner with Blackbullion. I mean, it's free to use for all students and prospective students. And within Blackbullion, lots of short videos and quizzes and pathways to really help develop your money skills. Now, part of the pathways are around starting at university and your time whilst you're studying, but a lot of them are to do with your time after university. So once you're into work, so how does the tax system work? What's credit referencing? What about mortgages and pensions? So lots of content on there for you to go through. It's completely free to sign up. As a prospective student, we can get you signed up to part of Blackbullion too. Certainly worth a look. You know, I've been working in the world of money advice for many years, and I'm still learning new stuff from Blackbullion. So it's really, really worth getting involved with Blackbullion. It's truly an excellent resource.
Well.
Okay, well, that's the end of the slide. So we're going to move now into the Q&A section. I hope you found those informative. And if you do have any questions, you're always more than welcome to email us or pop a question into the chat if that's an option for you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, David. I mean, like you say, you never really stop learning. And I think the top tips you said there, now looking back, I know, Guy, you at the end of your course and me completed mine, you're like, oh yeah, I should have really could have really done that from the start. It does make a huge difference, especially because, you know, you're going to be at the university for a minimum of 3 years. So these are skills that are really going to help you along. So if we move on to some of the questions, if we can pop the first one on the screen. Brilliant. So the first question we've got is, when will I get my maintenance loan?
Okay, well, provided that your maintenance loan application has been confirmed, apply for tuition fee loan, maintenance loan on one application. It's all part of the same system on the .gov.uk website. So let's say you've had it all approved. When you turn up to the enrolment weekend, we will confirm to the student loans company that you're here and that you're attending and you're registered on the course. So then your maintenance loan should be with you, all being well, around 3 to 5 working days after. So most students receive it at some point during that initial welcome weekend. Occasionally it might be the week after. You know, it's normally at the start of each term. The actual maintenance loan is paid in approximately thirds at the start of each term. So there's 3 terms per academic year. So September, October time, around January, and then around sort of end of March, beginning of April time.
Yeah, I think I remember from mine time, with the welcome week started on a Friday, and then you'd usually get it at the start of sort of the next week. So like you're saying, just making sure that you've got a couple of you've got some money just to help you with them first couple of days, or however long it takes for it to come in, just to have that leeway. Yeah. So should we move on to the next question?
Yep, sure.
Yeah, fab.
Okay,
so
okay.
When do I repay my student loan? So David, you take this one because
yep, sure. Okay.
Thank goodness.
It's once you've finished your course, then you start to repay from the April after, so the new tax year, and you'll only start to repay once you're earning over the repayment threshold. So the repayment threshold at the moment is just under £28,000 for those that apply through Student Finance England. I think it's about 27,925 off the top of my head. I may be slightly out. And the amount that you repay is 9% over that threshold. So the amount you repay is never based upon borrow. It's always based around how much you are earning at any given time. So if you're under that threshold, you don't have to pay anything. If you're over, then it's always that 9% over. For most people, it's taken straight through the tax system, a bit like pay-as-you-earn tax. If you do decide to go self-employed, or if you go overseas, then you may need to make alternative arrangements. There is a really brilliant page on the .gov.uk website called Repaying My Student Loan. It tells you about the repayment arrangements, but also the interest rates that accrue on student finance as well. So it's always worth taking a look at that. And just one final point, Martin Lewis has done an amazing video on student finance. So if you head to Money Saving Expert and have a look at his student finance video, it really is a brilliant piece of work, as he always is.
it's good to just get that insight before you start, isn't it? Just so you've got an idea for 3 years when you graduate seems quite a while away, but getting that insight before is always really useful to know what.
Sure, definitely.
Okay, so one of the next questions is, how do I ensure that my money lasts all term? So Gaia, if we head to you first, and maybe if you wouldn't mind giving some tips on how you help your money last all term, anything that you would recommend?
So for starters, I'd say if you're able to, open separate bank accounts where you can basically divide your student loan into like a weekly allowance and future savings. I did this throughout the entire of my 4 years, and honestly, it's such a lifesaver. It's definitely like it helps you visualize like what money you have a lot better, and by physically moving that money into a different account, it will kind of trick your brain into thinking you can't touch it. And this has definitely helped me now that I'm coming to the end of my university experience, and I'm starting to worry about graduate jobs and starting to self-fund myself, that it's really helpful having that backup money. A lot of my savings have come from my student loan that I've managed to thankfully squirrel away. I definitely think taking advantage of your student loan and trying to stretch it if you're able to. So say if you had I saw this tip a few years ago, and honestly, again, it's like a massive lifesaver. Like if you say have £150 left over a week, instead of saving instead of spending 100 quid of that and putting 50 away, try to stretch the £50 on like food shopping and then put the £100 away. And it's definitely doable if you're able to, and you end up saving money quite rapidly. And that's like the main method that I've used over the last 4 years, and it's really, really helped me in those times when I haven't had a part-time job, or like I said, coming to the end of my university experience. I'd also suggest when you're buying foods and stuff, buy staple foods, so things like pasta, canned food that won't go out of date as quickly, because so you have time to eat them. Like in my weekly shop, I used to always buy things like fresh fruit, and I'd always forget to eat them. So also staple foods are great because you don't need to put them in the fridge or freezer, and as a student you will find there isn't a lot of space, even if you have like a flat of like 4 people, like there's never enough space. And sometimes people will use your shelf, so it's great if you have staple foods because you can put them in dry cupboards and save fridge space, or you could even keep it in your room if you want to. And I also I agree earlier with what you said about meal prepping. That has definitely helped me as well, especially if you cook off a large amount of food and that you divide, and if you have the fridge or freezer space, putting it in there, it definitely helps. Always make sure that you have food in the house and a meal ready to recook if so you can't use the excuse of not having enough food in the house to order a takeaway. I definitely did that a few times in first year, where I'd say, oh, okay, I haven't got enough food, so I'll just order Domino's. But that and it feels great at the time, but then that starts to add up a lot. And especially if you just simply rely on your student loan and you don't have a part-time job, like that will really reduce your money quite fast. Also, having a meal prep is like a lifesaver, because you then don't have to spend as much time in the kitchen cooking. I know some people, including myself, I don't love cooking, especially if I'm quite like busy that day. I just want to go in, microwave something and go back out. And I think I speak for a lot of students when I say that. So I think having a meal prep is like a really good idea, because then all you need to do is reheat that and then eat it. So yeah,
definitely 100%. I mean, I think what you said at the start about the separate bank accounts, I mean, there's so many sort of like cash card ideas out there at the moment where you can just put so much away on there, and then exactly how much you have to spend, because when you're getting kind of like one lump sum in, and it has to go for so many different things after, I think it's like a 3-month period on like average or something like that. And obviously the summer one's a lot longer. Being able to put that away, and even if you did it by week, if you did it by month, and then you can really have an idea of how much you've got and what sort of things you can do with the money. And like you say, food is just one of the ways that you can kind of look at and think, okay, right, I might not be able to get 4 takeaways this week, which I know that sounds quite drastic, but I definitely did that as a student at one point. And definitely
I was the same.
Definitely couldn't. So yeah, just having that overview is so much better, because I think when that amount of money comes on the first day, it can be like, oh my gosh, there's so much, but actually really once you split it out, it's not as exciting as getting that first
Yeah,
one.
definitely. Like the amount of times I'd have like a flatmate who like 3 months later they have about 100 quid in their bank, and they have to stretch that over like a few weeks, and they're like then having to ask their parents for money, and like they're honestly so stressed. Like I definitely found, like, because I have I think 3 bank accounts, so I almost have like weekly allowance, then kind of like short-term savings. So say if I wanted to save up and treat myself to like some new clothes or something, and then I'll have my like future like goals, so like I guess buying a house and things like that. And that's definitely really helped me like take advantage of my student loan, especially if you have, you know, the maximum student loan, like maintenance loan, and you are able to squirrel away that money. I definitely think that's really helpful.
Yeah, it's definitely you know, everybody's situation it is very, very different, and you know, if you do get the maximum, and if you're in cheap housing, you know, that you possibly would have the opportunity. You know, we often see students that may have a higher household income and they get a lower maintenance loan, so those students will need to consider, you know, how to make good their deficit, and you know, there are various ways of doing that, and part-time work is certainly very popular. We often survey our students about work, and it's interesting, you know, those that work a little bit doing part-time work, you know, typically between about 8 and 12 hours a week on average, they say, well, actually doing a bit of work every week, that really helps me with my course because I'm doing something a bit different. You know, it's taking my mind off my studies, resetting my mind even. I'm not out spending money, you know, I'm working. So it's a positive thing. And, you know, some of those students that we survey that are not working, so, well, I can't work because that might impact my studies. So, you know, it's always important to consider, if you do choose to work, to do a reasonable amount of hours as to not impact your academic potential. And, you know, certain courses may have more hours involved than others. And certainly if you're doing a creative course, for example, art and design, that sort of thing, you know, you may spend a lot of time putting work together. But, you know, if you do think about work, then our employability team can help you look for a job that's going to work for you, as it were. And, you know, if students are really struggling financially, let's say they're sort of getting towards the end of term and, you know, they're running low, then they should always contact our service, because we can provide advice and guidance, and there may be solutions for those students depending on their circumstances. So, you know, we are here to support students. We'd never leave a student destitute, definitely not.
No, definitely not. So if we'll move on to the next question, because I think we've kind of ticked off a few actually just discussing them. But if we come across, we'll likely brush over it. But that was a good discussion there, guys. So so do I have to use my parents' household income? So I think we had a couple of questions just on this when we were doing the
Yeah,
slides.
it's a very, very good question.
Yeah.
So if you're under the age of 25, then the student loans company will expect there to be a household income assessment unless you are deemed to be independent. So you could potentially be independent if you are a parent yourself. So if you have a child, or if you've been or married, or in a civil partnership, or have been, or it could be that you're independent for other reasons. So you may be estranged from both parents, or you may be a care leaver. So they're the main ones really. But if you're under 25, then it's normally household income. So if your parents have split up, then it would be the household in which you would ordinarily live. So if your parent has a new partner, their income would be used as part of the assessment as well. If you're not assessed, you get that minimum amount of maintenance loan. So it was about £4,500. One other point is that if you have supported yourself financially from work for 3 years prior to starting your course, then you may also be treated as independent too. But if you're under 25, more often than not, it is the parents' household income. that gets used. The student loans company will assess parental income on a year-by-year basis. So those students joining us this September, then it's the 20 to 21 tax year that gets used. If there has been a reduction of income since that tax year, then you may be able to ask to be assessed on a more recent year. But the tax year will also move forwards for each academic year of assessments. Some really good information about assessments and how it all works on the .gov.uk website. But if you get stuck with anything, contact us and we can talk you through it within an appointment to make sure you get your application sorted and you get the right assessment. You get your ducks in a row ready to join us for Welcome Week.
Fab. So we'll move on to the next question. So do I have to get a student bank account? Do you have to get one?
No,
David?
not at all. But,
No.
there are lots of incentives for student bank accounts. So, each bank has a different incentive. Some of them may give you a young person's rail card. I'm sure, I haven't looked at the incentives recently, but if you are looking at a student bank account, shop around, see which banks are doing a package that suits you. Many of them will give you an overdraft, and it's often interest-free whilst you're a student. You don't have to take the overdraft if you don't want to. It's all about personal choice on that one. Do you have anything to add to that? You possibly be a bit nearer to the whole banking thing than me as a current student.
Like I said, I have multiple bank accounts, and I'm pretty sure two of them aren't student ones. I took out a student bank account in first year, just like I said, just to have that extra one so I could manage my finances a lot better. And I definitely, I do recommend getting them, especially if you are interested in, those incentives like the rail card or like, I don't know, like Amazon Prime or like, there's a few other like David said, I can't remember off the top of my head since it was like 4 years ago what the current ones are. But I personally, even though I've been given an overdraft, I try to stay away from it because I think students are notorious for going into it. It definitely makes you feel like you have that money available on top of your student loan, and it's very easy to fall into that pit. So I purposely stayed away from it. But then again, like David said, it is up to your personal preference.
It is, and it won't be interest free. Normally, once you've stopped being a student, the amount of the overdraft that is interest free will gradually reduce over a period of time. And if you've had a look at bank accounts recently, you'll notice that the amount of interest that's charged on even authorized overdrafts is very high compared to the current base rate. So if you can avoid having an overdraft, then it's certainly advisable to avoid it. It's a useful safety net, but it can be something that's very difficult to get out of once you're into it. So if you can swerve an overdraft, if that's a possibility, then it's certainly advisable to.
Yeah, I think definitely with an overdraft, something to bear in mind that it's good to have that safety net, like you say, but that safety net is for your full duration of your course. It's not just a first year overdraft or anything like that. Like you say, it's good to have the safety net, but if you can keep it at a lower one for the first year, and then if you need to increase it, or maybe look at it that way rather than going for the full overdraft. I think looking back, I think like you say, you get that amount to start with, and it's just so exciting with the overdraft. But then it's monopoly money, isn't it? That's what everyone says. It's not actual. It's just there. So I think definitely just bear in mind that it's for the full year. It's for the full course of your undergraduate and postgraduate. And like you say, David, it does. You do have to pay. It does decrease once you graduate. I think it gives you a few months. But yeah, just something to really bear in mind, especially like you say, if you're new to university. So should we move on to the next question? So can NTU help me manage my money? David, well, I think you're the best person for this.
we absolutely can. And there are many ways that we can do that. So my team, we provide advice, guidance, information and support to current students and prospective students. So we offer one-to-one appointments. They're completely confidential. So at the moment, we're doing those over Microsoft Teams, but we'll also, by the time you guys arrive, have some on-campus appointments too. But we also provide workshops, and you can, as a prospective student, sign up to one of those. So that's a really good introduction into money management and budgeting and finance at NTU. We could also provide information and guidance on the student finance application process, and we do help students appeal. So if you feel that a decision's incorrect, or you haven't got the right amount, or there's a technical aspect to your application that you don't think student finance have got quite right, we can certainly assist you in making sure that you get the right funding. Most students will get their funding by virtue of being a UK national and they've been living here for 3 years prior to the course start date, but there are lots of other ways that students might be entitled to funding. There's about 15 different eligibility categories. So if you need a hand with anything, my team certainly are here to help you. Not only whilst you're a student, but beforehand. So as a prospective student, if there's anything that you need, anything to do with money whatsoever, drop us an email. We'll send you a booking link, and we'll be really more than happy to see you within an appointment.
I feel like we're on the news and we've got this banner going across the bottom, like,
I quite like it. It's good.
I know. Technology nowadays, eh? Isn't it great? So yeah, we'll move on to the next question. Thanks so much for that, David, pointing all that amazing things out. So, when will I find out if I get the NTU bursary?
Yeah, good question. So the bursary is one which is automatically applied, but there are a few conditions to that. So we get the bursary household income information from your student finance application. So you must make sure that consent is given to have that information shared with ourselves. If that's all good and you meet the eligibility criteria, so in a nutshell, you're entitled to a tuition fee loan and a maintenance loan, and you're doing a degree or a foundation degree, as an undergraduate, then you should be eligible. Full details about eligibility are on our website. So what happens towards the start of term, we will run a report. So everybody that has a household income of £25,000 or less will be eligible, and we will then send you a letter in the post confirming that the bursary has been awarded to you. £750 for the current arrangements. The arrangements for next year should be announced within the next few weeks, I'm hoping, but so keep an eye on our website for an update. And the bursary is normally paid in 3 instalments during the academic, typically sort of towards the middle of the payment periods for student finance. So it just gives you a little bit of a bump. So there's one sort of just before Christmas, one around Valentine's Day, and then one in April.
Fab. Thanks for that, David. So we'll just move on to the last question. I think we've got just a few left. So okay. I have children of my own. Is there any extra financial support?
Yeah, there is. So depending on your household income, you may be able to get a bit of an extra grant from student finance called the Parents' Learning Allowance. So that's money that's paid to you for, additional costs that you may incur. And also, if you have childcare, then you may be entitled to a childcare grant. So that's a grant that can help contribute up to 85% of any childcare costs that you may have whilst you're studying. And depending on your personal circumstances, you may also be entitled to state benefits still. So you may be able to claim universal credit whilst you study. So you might have that as an additional source of income alongside your student finance. So if you need a hand with any of this, then, do get in touch and we can let you know what you might be entitled to.
Perfect. So yeah, we'll pop on to the next one. So when should I apply for my student loans? I know you said about the deadline, but we
haven't got the date just yet for the applications to open. We've heard it's March. Apply as early as you can. If you apply at the start of the cycle, it's going to take 4 weeks or thereabouts for the application to be all processed. If you wait until August, September time, you'll be lucky to see it before Christmas because of the demand. So many people apply for student finance, over 1 million people a year. There's only a finite number of assessors. Ultimately, it's a government process, run by the student loans company. So as early as you can. If you're not sure where you're going to go, that doesn't matter. Just put your first best guess down. If you do change institutions, partway through the application process, maybe through clearing or adjustment, you can always just update the university of choice on there. But as early as you can, and remember that money will only be paid out once you're attending a course.
Brilliant. So I think we just have one more question to go through, and I know we've had a few questions in the comments. So if there's not been able to get around it, or it's quite specific to your situation, like David says, just go to the email address that's going across the bottom of the screen, and someone will be able to help you with the exact advice that you're looking for. So the last question, I'm sure we'll all be able to. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but maybe we could talk about the few different things that we know you can do as a student, Gaia. And yeah, so can I work while I study? I don't mind just starting off with this one. So yes, 100%. As David said earlier, a lot of courses do actually give you a recommended amount of hours that they think you should do alongside your course, particularly when you get to final year. These should be reduced down massively just so you can focus on your education and getting your final bits of work in. I think, for example, top of my head, I think mine was like 11 hours in my final year. That was, they were saying like you shouldn't do any more than that, which was fine. It meant that you can like budget around that. Throughout my time at uni, I worked in retail throughout Nottingham. It's very populated by students working there, and it was really great to be able to work there on weekends. I know that a lot of people might work in bars, so you can do more evening shifts and things like that. There's a wide variety of things that you can do as a student. But yes, 100%, especially as David says, it's sometimes great for you to get that experience alongside your course. It gives you them transferable skills.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Especially if you might not have worked before you'd come to uni, there's always something that you can help you. For example, I did a fashion course, so I worked in a fashion retail shop in Nottingham, which then helped me be able to actually get a placement with that company. So there's always them, be thinking about it maybe even before you come to uni. If there's an ideal company you want in mind, you can always reach out to them and to be that one step ahead. It's a really great thing to just have a think about before you come, especially if you know that you're going to want to work, or like you might have to get that extra income if you want to top up your maintenance loan. So to answer the question, yes, 100%. And it's really good to have a think idea about it before you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got any feel in mind?
You don't have to venture far, because as a university, we have some options for you with regards to work too. So we have lots of open days, and we have student ambassadors, so they come and work during the open days. And if you visited an open day, they're an amazing atmosphere. I love doing them because I was a student once, and I love the university and everything that it offers. So working at open day is an absolute treat. So we have many of those, undergrad, postgrad. So there's work there, and often around campus as well. So you don't need to venture out that far. Doesn't need to be late night work, although a lot of people love doing it. So there's definitely a right job for you out there. And as I mentioned earlier, our employability team can help you find the right job for you. And just on the note for open days, if you haven't been to one yet, we've got one on Saturday. So you can still register, you can still sign up, come along and say hi, and enjoy the facilities that we offer.
Definitely. And Guy, if you want to give your experience of working whilst at university.
So I worked from first year to third year in a pub, and I used to do weekend work, and I only did I think 8 hours a week, and that was really manageable. I definitely agree with you, Katie, where you say that it's great as like a top up of your maintenance loan, especially if you don't get the most, or even if say you do get the maximum. It is great just to have that a little bit extra a week or a month, depending on how you get paid. I thought it was great just having a little bit there, just so I could treat myself, and then use my student loan for food and stuff. And like I said, I worked in a pub, whereas this year I'm now working as a student ambassador and for the social media team. And I changed partly because I think that works with my schedule a lot better. And they're always posting, if you are interested in student ambassador roles, they are always posting on the NTU job website, and Unitemps, which is a company that NTU work with when it comes to student jobs. And there's so many, there's a variety of vacancies depending on what you want to do. You don't just have to do open days. You could also, I guess, do things to do with sports or bar work within the student union. I know a lot of of my friends work in the student union, and there's lots of benefits and incentives there, and it's a great environment if you do like the bar and hospitality industry. There's honestly like such a variety, and like the great thing about Nottingham being such a student city is that there's always jobs going, and so many companies are always hiring students, and they're always really happy to give you flexible shifts. Like I didn't have to do weekend work if I didn't want to. Like my pub was always really happy with me if I wanted to change a shift or like during the week. So it really depends on your preferences. It's definitely doable though, and I would really recommend it. I really enjoyed getting out of the house and doing something different, considering my course is quite a theoretical and like essay heavy course. So it was quite fun almost doing something quite I don't know, I guess like hands-on and
it's like you can also get an extra social life through working, and not as in just like going out, but you get another group of friends. You might even know people who work at uni, people you would never have met working just being at uni. So it's another like great circle to add. I loved it. I really enjoyed the part-time work. Like you say, Guy, you can just get that hands-on instead of like just sat at the library. You can be out talking to people and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, I definitely agree. Like especially also if you're stuck in a lot, like this year I don't have as many lectures and like on campus things, so a lot of the time I'm stuck in my room at my desk, and I think that's the case for a lot of students, especially with the pandemic over the last year. And just getting out even for like 8 hours a week just was really helpful. You know, it makes you, I guess, like I love counting my steps every day, so it's like I like to be kind of competitive with myself and seeing if I can reach that goal, and it's quite motivating, and you know, to stay active, especially if you aren't a fan of going to the gym. It's another way to, you know, keep you healthy both mentally and physically.
Yeah, that was a really great discussion, guys. I mean, to answer the question, can you work while you study? 100%. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. David, I've just realised it looks like we're in the same room with our backgrounds. We're not everyone. It's very much a virtual Q&A. We're not just sat at the other side.
I'm over in Newark, I think. Where are you? Nottingham?
I'm actually in Doncaster.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Definitely virtual, but just saw the theme and I was like, oh, they look like. Oh yeah, they're themes.
All the houses in Newark look like this.
Brilliant. So thank you very much, guys. That is the end of our questions. As we said, if there's any that we haven't got round to, there's been like so much information in this. If there hasn't, they haven't got round to, you can just pop them to the email address at the bottom of the page, and it'll probably be David or another member of our financial advisors team helping you out. And yeah, keep an eye on our web pages to see if we've got any upcoming lives, and yeah, take a look at our YouTube channel to have a look at the past ones that we've talked about. We've had some great ones talking about accommodation and things like that, so you can go back and have a look and have see if any of your questions are answered if you've got any burning ones. So thank you very much, guys. We will end it there and go off and enjoy your evening. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's been lovely. Good old chinwag, and we'll see you all soon. So thank you very much.
All right.
Bye.